Good evening and welcome to the 2022 ESPnW Women in Sports Summit live from beautiful Ojai, California. Please welcome to the stage the co-anchor of the 6 p.m. Sports Center and your summit host, the one, the only, Elle, Duncan.
Can I have my Lizzo moment? I'll never be a pop star, but today I could be. Let's go. What is up, Ojai, California? What is up to our amazing friends that are streaming us from all over the country, no matter where you are? This is the 2022 Women in Sports Summit from ESPnW. Make some noise, ladies and gentlemen. We're good. I'm done with my Lizzo moment. Wait, now I am. Oh! So, we're so glad that you're all here. How are you feeling? It's really hard not to feel great in a place like this, I have to say. A couple of sort of housekeeping notes before we get the night officially started. Has anybody had an elixir yet? Is it really vain that I took a picture next to it and was like, I've made it, Mom? Is that lame? Yeah, I have a drink named after me now. So we want to take lots of pictures. We want to tell everybody about the time that we're having here. And you see the hashtag, that's a W. So remember to take your pictures and post them. And in fact, I'm going to get us started. Can we do a selfie? Because did anything really actually happen if you don't post it on Instagram? It didn't. Okay, you ready? Dan's going to take a picture of me taking a picture of you guys. How meta, right? Speaking of which, shout out to Meta. Hey! Okay, here we go. You ready? Smile. I love the people here that are like, we're not even close to in that. You're right. We're going to edit you all in and post. We're probably not, but it's fine. Tell everyone that you were here. So this is our first time having this here at the Ojai Valley Inn, and it is incredible. And I feel like when I was first telling people I was coming here, I was like, oh yeah, I'm headed to Ojai. And then I got here, and I was like, oh, hi. Right? I am married with a family, but I'm willing to risk it all for you, Ojai Valley Inn. I'm kidding. I would sin for my family in a couple of months. When getting spa treatments wore thin. Does that happen? But when I think about the Women's Summit in particular, I think about my last experience at this summit, which was in 2018. Was anyone at that one? Woo-woo! And I was 2 months postpartum with my first child, my daughter Eva, and I remember crying the whole way out here on the plane because I felt so much guilt. And I just kept thinking to myself, are you being selfish? And you're gonna go and hang out in this beautiful resort and your daughter needs you, and real big first mom energy, first time kid. And then I landed here and I started talking to people and meeting people. And I was still crying because like I said, I was 2 months postpartum, but I left here feeling so incredibly energized. I left here feeling focused and restored. And I want you all to know that you all deserve this. I know that you all had to leave important jobs. I know that you are a key cog in either your family or your business or for your brand. And I know it probably took a Herculean effort to get you out here today, but you deserve this moment. We deserve this opportunity. And that's exactly what this is, you guys. Is an opportunity. When women mobilize, when we come together, when we talk, when we share stories, when we ask questions, we succeed. That's what this place is for. You deserve to talk. You deserve to sip wine. You deserve to have goat yoga. Do we even have goat yoga? Doesn't this just feel like a place that has big goat yoga energy, right? And then the goat poops and it's lavender. That's how this place, you get what I'm saying. You deserve everything that is in store for you over the next 3 days. There are so many gems and pearls of wisdom that I took away from that experience in 2018 that I still apply today. And so I want you all to get the most out of this. Let's leave here and impact our communities. Let's leave here with a purpose. Let's sip a little tea, sure. But mostly, let's figure out how we can continue to impact our communities and our partnerships and women in sports. Because I firmly believe this. There are so many powerful people in this audience right now. And alone we are powerful. But together, collectively, we are impactful. And I am hoping that you all feel that way and that we can have an incredible summit. We in? Are you ready to make an impact? So I feel like there's no one that's a better example of making an impact than the person that I'm going to be bringing up. It's a woman who was just audacious enough to say, there needs to be a change, and who had the courage to decide she'd be the one to make that change. So ladies and gentlemen, here in Ojai, and those of you that are streaming as well, I would love for you to give a rousing round of applause to the founder of ESPnW, to the executive vice president of commercial marketing for Disney and ESPN, Laura Gentile.
Hi. Ooh, you look so nice.
Thank you. Hey, honey. Oh, there's the beat drop. Hey.
All right.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Do you guys know, I'm going to poll the audience really quick. Do you know what summit this is? Hey! You don't get a prize, but like, way to go, bragging rights. So Laura, this is the 13th summit.
Yes.
Meaning that this is the 13th time that you've sort of stood in front of an audience and given this State of the Union address, if you will, when it comes to women in sports. How has that conversation changed and evolved over the last 13 plus years, and in particular over the last few years?
Yeah, it's changed radically. I mean, for those who were here in the first year and the first few years, it was all about evangelism. It was all about, hey, women matter, and women are an incredible consumer base, and women love sports, and women's sports is on the rise. And it was very much around getting people to care that women matter, that women can make a difference in the sports space. And now, it's a very different conversation. We're really talking about the economic value of women's sports. I think we've proven out that women drive business and drive the business of sports as fans. And so it's just a much more sophisticated conversation we're having now, which is very, very exciting to see that evolution.
Yeah, it feels like you no longer have to sort of legitimize our place, right? I do think, though, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but I tend to notice, and I talk to a lot of women about this, we tend to be, us disruptors anyway, tend to be very focused on sort of the next battle, the next hill we have to climb, what else we have to dismantle. And a lot of times we don't really revel at all in the journey. And it feels like despite how far we have to go and how many opportunities we have, there's a lot to celebrate that we've done so far in this space, Laura.
Yeah, no, there is. I mean, just this past year alone, our commitment to the women's sports space, the notion of 60% of all sports hours, 60% increase in sports hours across our networks, that's a group effort. That's our team in programming. That's everybody across the board kind of galvanizing to say, let's show and feature more female athletes. In addition, we've moved a lot of incredible programs and live events to ABC, which is an incredible platform for us, and we're lucky to have it, obviously, within the Walt Disney Company. But such a broad, inclusive platform for that's just drove record ratings for us. And our partners benefit. The WNBA, NCAA sports, are just benefiting from this much broader, much more inclusive audience. Particularly, like I said, the WNBA, the gymnastics, but then Women's Final Four, which you've hosted, had a phenomenal year this year. And the championship game next year will be on ABC.
Hey!
And then we had the most viewed volleyball match ever across our networks. And it's a sport women dominate, let's just say it, volleyball. But again, that's a concerted effort to say there's an opportunity. Let's use our broadest platform to reach the largest audience, and let's showcase these female athletes. But the other thing that we've really focused on is building this brand called ESPnW. Mm-hmm. Again, that was a very intentional decision to build this brand that would then bring more women into the ESPN ecosystem, if you will. And we've really tried to create a really dynamic ideally sensational brand. But it's true, if women have an affinity for ESPNW, they have a 20-point increase in their brand love for ESPN. And they have a 21-point increase in their perception that we care about them. And that's huge. You know, that was, again, part of the original mission, was to say, we're going to create a brand that stands as a beacon for women to say ESPN cares, but a real authentic place. And that's bearing fruit, and that's really working out for us. And then you could really see it in viewership. And it's not just on women's sports, but female viewership really driving major properties for us, like F1, like Major League Baseball, and as we talked about, you know, the WNBA, gymnastics, and volleyball. So those are examples of where the female audience is really driving the growth, and there's more female growth even than on the male side.
And you know what else is driving growth? Having women in positions of influence and power as well.
For sure.
Yeah. Right?
As you mentioned, I mean, look at this crowd. You know, we've always talked about, you know, pretty much everybody in this audience could be on the stage because they're so accomplished and they can be speakers. But just the power of us talking and the fact that we now work together and partner together, again, that didn't happen 10 or 12 years ago. But, you know, from Rita Farrow, who basically drives ad sales for the entire Walt Disney Company, to Deborah O'Connell, who's president of President of Networks for Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution. Those two women alone are responsible for literally billions of dollars. Like, let's all go like this. Like,
billions of dollars.
It's legit. And then, you know, colleagues like Kate Johnson at Google, who's asking all the right questions and driving change. Romina Bongiovanni at New Balance, years and years of support. Kathy Carter, LA 2028. And then the entire leadership team at Angel City FC, you know, taking a brand new approach, you know, again, challenging the status quo, not being satisfied. You know, these type of female executives really, again, we just didn't have that type of power 10 years ago, frankly. I know all of us are much more senior 10 years later and have much more responsibility. And then, Elle, as you know, particularly at ESPN, women in front of the camera and behind the camera, making a difference, sharing our voices. We're going to see that later in the program, sort of the women of ESPN, the producers, if you will. So we always herald the women in front of the camera, but we're going to look Steph Drewley, Meg Aronowitz, Aisha Cheney, Hillary Guy, women who call the shots, decide on, you know, the stories to tell, decide about the production, drive the, you know, our best storytelling. So we're excited to put them in front of the camera, and Malika Andrews will be the moderator. But again, the opportunity to shine the spotlight on these women, and, you know, we'd have the greats like Doris Burke. But again, just giving all these women, you know, an opportunity to flourish and a platform to flourish on.
I love that you mentioned the women behind the scenes. I always joke with women when they say, like, well, I'm interested in maybe what you do. And I'm like, someone tells me what to do. I don't have any of the power, right? Like, they have all the power. So we've talked a lot about the growth, but I'm going to quote from the great philosopher Jay-Z here, right? I think you all know this quote that I'm going with, right? What was it? Men lie, women lie. Numbers don't. Not a lot of Jay-Z fans. Fine.
Go back.
Some of y'all was supposed to look out for me. I'm just kidding. And it's hard to argue, right, that the numbers tell the full perspective in terms of investing in women, because it still is, Laura, a bit of a, you have to be brave and courageous based on the standard business practice that most people sort of know, right?
Yeah, but you do. I mean, we're still, you know, going against the grain, if you will. And I think you do have to have conviction, even more so, I think, than courage to stay with it. I thought it was really interesting. You know, the NWSL had an incredible season this year, but the owners of the KC Current taking the long view and really talking about taking the long view and how they're investing in facilities and they're investing in their players and they're investing in world-class experience for these players. And they're looking at it as a 10-year investment, and they're talking to investors about that kind of long view, and that's what's required. You know, I know, you know, with ESPNW, when we started this, we knew it wasn't going to be an overnight sensation. Like, we knew it was an 8 to 10 year proposition, and that type of stamina, I think, is required of all of us to just stay the course and not buckle and give into kind of what's always been done. But I think, particularly in soccer, you're seeing it. I mean, the crowds speak for themselves. You know, whether it is NWSL, whether it is a friendly at Wembley Stadium, whether it is, you know, Super League or Champions League, attendance records, you know, across the board speak volumes. People want this content.
I think it's important to note too, though, Laura, like let's just remember what Laura does, right? So what she's asking of you to sort of be brave and also to sort of think of like the long-term investment. It kind of goes against everything that you're supposed to do with marketing, right? Because you are head of marketing. So you are being sort of judged under the same guide of like a standard rating system, right? But you're also the innovator and founder of ESPnW. So I'm interested in how you sort of compartmentalize those two things so that you can still accomplish what you're hoping to do in this space.
You know, Elle, this question did get me thinking.
Okay.
Because, you know, you think about it in marketing, I look at it, I think we're charged with driving growth. So if you look at it in that way, you know, incredible male ally in Jimmy Pitero when he asked me to, you know, lead marketing at ESPN 4 years ago. And, you know, one of the key pieces of that was to, again, to really think about what's going to make ESPN a stronger company 5, 10 years from now. And so we talked a lot about audience growth and how do you find new audiences and how do you drive, you know, a bit of change, but talk to segments that are going to grow with us. And quickly you get to women, quickly you get to youth. And so it's incumbent upon us to also invest in the future. So yeah, we're definitely mindful of what do we have to do this quarter, next quarter to drive ratings, to drive engagement. But I think, you know, again, as leaders, you kind of have to look at the whole picture and say, hey, this is an audience we have to cultivate, and it's going to pay dividends for us. And we do have to really, you know, have conviction, like I said, to really stay there. And I think, too, you're seeing it across the board, as I mentioned with some of the stats. Women are proving to be an engine of growth and difference makers in the sports industry and across the board with so many of these properties. So that's a key piece of it for sure. And then the notion of keeping this voice really vibrant, a new, fresh voice in the sports space, for sure.
Yeah, I want to say, too, sort of what I've seen over the last few years, just sort of from my perspective, is believe women, right? We've asked, like, believe us and trust us. And I feel like I have been empowered over the last few years. I work in these mostly male spaces, you know, where my production team sort of looks, well, doesn't sort of look like men, are just men. They're not cosplaying as men, they're just men. But I've noticed that, I think especially over the last few years, just this idea of believing me when I say that something is important, when I say that women are hurting or need this space, when I say, like, allow me, you know, the room to be able to tell a story like Girl Dad and amplify women and what that looks like. And I think, you know, for many years, we sort of weren't sure, some of us that worked at ESPN, some of us that were in those sort of subgroups and minorities, like, is it okay to speak out? Is it okay to be empowered? And I think we have been given that opportunity over the last few years, and it has allowed us to use our platforms in a way that I don't think anyone ever anticipated. I always want to get these jokes off. I always want you to leave, like, feeling like you got some sports knowledge, but I would say over the last few years, Laura, it's just been so empowering to know that, like, I'm also going to be able to talk to you like a real person. I hurt like you. I suffer like you. I want to create a space for people that look like me and people that don't. And I take this responsibility quite seriously. So thank you for continuing to fight so that I have been given an opportunity to own my space.
But Elle, you've been so influential. You know, you have a platform every single day on SportsCenter. You've used that platform to drive movements like Girl Dad. Talk about that a little bit. I mean, you already mentioned it, but when you think about, you know, your role day in and day out on SportsCenter and how your voice matters.
It's thank you. I mean, I like I said, I do take it quite seriously, despite anyone that's seen me on TV. Probably tell that, right? They're like, no, you don't. I do. I do. I want to entertain you, but when I look at something like Girl Dad, it started out as a story and it became a movement, I think, because it was someone saying something that felt like a big duh to me, like not just loving that you have a daughter because she's your daughter and you should love her, but the idea that you loved having specifically a daughter because of the uniqueness of that and the beauty in women. And I just felt like for the first time in a long time, we had men saying, you know, I am so proud to have specifically a daughter. And I think the next iteration of that is how we continue to speak and advocate in boardrooms. Like all those incredible, well-meaning girl dads, like, are you continuing to advocate for girls that are not your daughter? And we were able to open up those conversations. And so again, I'm not sure that that's a space we can do that 12 years ago.
Yeah, no, I just see you, you know, every evening with Kevin and
Drone.
They
hated the drone.
We've had drones, but see your interaction with Kevin, and you know, you're obviously always hold your own. You always have a point of view, and again, I think that's just so critical to be that comfortable in your own skin and how you do that day in and day out.
Well, I wasn't always that way, and I'm not going to lie to you. Coming here a few years ago was really important to me. Some of the conversations that were had, I just remember feeling like it was okay to take up space and to be loud and to advocate, and that's sort of one of those things that I walked away with a few years ago, and I think that's the beauty of what we're going to do here. I know you guys have seen the agendas and the rundowns, but just to remind you, a few of sort of the key summit conversations that we're going to have over the next 3 days. Right after dinner, Laura sort of hit on it. We're going to have an incredible story about the fight for Iranian women just to watch soccer. Like, imagine the idea of, like, your form of protest is watching soccer and the idea that it could get you killed. Like, that is what so many women are facing in the Middle East, and we're going to get into that conversation.
Well, that's the thing. We talk about courage, right? That's
true courage. True courage. Truly. We'll talk about Title IX. We all knew it's the 50th anniversary, right? Title IX compliance and ways to take real, tangible action to help enforce it, because that's important as well. We're going to hear from some amazing executives, as you mentioned, on our Women at the Helm panel. We'll get a little bit smarter about how we can best optimize the performance and mental health of female athletes. I am so excited about this one. Becky Hammond is going to be here. Ever heard of her? Exactly. World champion. She has dominated every space she's ever been in, and now she's doing it as a coach. So she'll be joining us along with the incomparable Hannah Storm. We can't wait for that. And we'll have a ton of fun as well, right? St. Vincent is going to perform. We love her. We've got world-class athletes. Crystal Dunn is with us. There'll be pickleball. There'll be hikes. Someone said there was like a kickball game or dodgeball. I know they're very different. Which one?
Kickball.
Kickball. Okay,
Kickball.
good. That feels friendlier. So much that we're going to be doing here in Ojai, and we're going to be doing it, Laura, because we truly have incredible partnerships.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a truism of the summit. We have the best partners and the best sponsors that enable this all, where they're truly a part of the planning, they're truly a part of the entire experience. And so, huge shout out, but off the top, woo-hoo! Toyota for 10 years has been with us, for a decade.
Let's go, Toyota!
Talk about stamina. No. But to truly be with us for 10 years and believe in what we're doing, and we're going to spotlight the Everyday Heroes program, which we love, and it just provides, you know, incredible women with additional support, but also the spotlight for all their programs that they're creating. Gatorade, with us from day one. Thank you. 13 years. Carolyn Bramf and team, thank you. Ally and Google. So they've been with us, 2 summits for the Ally, 2 years for Google. But the reality is these are brands and senior executives who are totally challenging the status quo, you know, demanding that women's sports be taken seriously, be sort of elevated in terms of support and impressions, and we're just super excited to be working with them on all those endeavors. Meta for the first time, we already got a shout out from Elle. And then New Balance, 3rd year, but I want to just model this
right, like how about the swag? I love it.
I usually go on a big shopping spree before the summit to, you know, enhance my wardrobe, but I put this on and I'm like, I'm wearing this the whole
very cozy.
time. So thank you. As I said, Romina, Joanna, the entire team from New Balance, amazing welcome suite and super generous with all your products, so thank you. But these sponsors make it happen, and they believe, and they're investing, and that's key. But before we top this all off, I just want to also talk about 2 executives that are going to make a huge difference for ESPNW moving forward. Many of you know Rachel Epstein. She was recently promoted to vice president.
Go, Rach!
And we just hired a new vice president in Susie Petrowski, Susie P. So that's also a part of the master plan. new, fresh voices to bring us to the next level. And Rachel and Susie are more than well equipped to do that. So thank you.
Thank you for your incredible work. And to quote from my boo, Lizzo, it's about damn time. Laura, we need to get to I feel like this is one of the most anticipated sort of parts of the first night, right? Like this has become a bit of a thing.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of a tradition. We want to start the summit off with a bang, with a sizzle, if you will.
Yes.
And so this year we're trying to top ourselves. We try that every year, but we're going to leave you with a sizzle and a little bit of Nina Simone. So enjoy.
Elle gets a hold of one.
Where you gonna run to? Where
This has been your stage. This is your moment.
Where you gonna run to?
The first equal pay CBA.
Will I run to the rock?
I'm honored to make way for other people.
We
earned our right to be here just like every other coach.
Please hide me, Lord, all on that day. But the rock cried out.
This is just the beginning. We just get started.
The rock cried out. I ain't gonna hide you down all on that day. Power!
Yes, I can.
In less than 24 hours, we celebrated equal rights for women, and now we react to women's rights being taken away.
Be there for each other. Here we go.
You guys, one more time, give it up for Laura Gentile. Thank you, Laura. Are you hungry? I stand in the way of food, so I'm going to get out of the way. But I just want to say to our streaming audience, we're going to take a little break for dinner. We will be back with you in just a second. For our Pacific time audience, around 7:15, we'll pick things back up right here on set with Kareem Daniel and our keynote speaker for the night. In the meantime, enjoy your dinner, and we will be back. Let's go, Ojai! Oh, dinner directions. I can yell it too. Here we go. Someone will come to your table and release you to the bits. Like, don't, like a lot of times at weddings, it's like, oh, women and children, but there's a lot of women. So someone's gonna come to your table, one of our incredible staff members, and will release you to the buffet, all right? So just keep it, but the drinks can keep going too. That's the liquid diet's a thing as well. All right, we'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Welcome back to the 2022 ESPNW Women in Sports Summit. Please welcome Peabody Award winner, the co-host of ESPN Radio's Spain and Fritz, writer for espnW.com, the host of ESPN's That's What She Said podcast, and a regular panelist on Around the Horn, the very busy and very talented Sarah Spain.
Hey, everybody. Isn't it beautiful here? Good Lord. They call this work, I guess. Very cool to be here. Very cool to see so many familiar faces, and awesome as always to be up here to talk to you about our Toyota Everyday Heroes. I've been doing this with Toyota since I think the first year that they started this program, and even when I'm not at the summit, and even when I'm back in Chicago, I still feel like I can reach out to Toyota when I need help with worthy causes, keeping people mobile, keeping people in movement. And so I'm very, very, very grateful to be up here again, helping represent Toyota and their partnership with the espnW. Their Everyday Heroes program honors women who are working to promote and grow girls and women's sports in local communities. They help inspire confidence, and they really change lives one person at a time. These women might not always get the recognition they deserve, and this is why Toyota and espnW every year does this to bring them that shine. It launched in 2013 at this summit. This will be the 7th class of Everyday Heroes. So tonight we're going to add 2 names to a growing community of incredible women who are changing their communities and empowering girls and women through sport.
This not only evokes positive change for the girls and their families, but creates incredible confidence for them to take into other areas of their lives. So we're so grateful for these women. And we're also grateful for the person who's going to join me on the stage to present their honors. She is an OG Summit goer from way back when. She is a legendary Paralympian. At 12 years old, she was the youngest athlete on the U.S. Paralympic swim team. She is now a 3-time ESPY award winner and a 29-time Paralympic medalist. 29. Please welcome to the stage Team Toyota athlete Jessica Long.
Hello. Hi.
We got short shorts and we got high boots.
And these legs.
Put them together and you got trouble, right? All right. Jessica, I'm so excited you're here because you've been a Toyota athlete for a long time, and Toyota obviously believes not just in the products that they put out, but helping create an inclusive and barrier-free world for everybody. I feel like you can speak better than anyone to how they've impacted your life. So what has working with Toyota been like?
Oh goodness, it's so hard to put into words because Toyota to me has meant everything. When Toyota came knocking, that was kind of around the time of my life when I wasn't believing in myself. And Toyota said, we believe in you and we support you. And it's truly been an honor to be a part of the Team Toyota and to have a Super Bowl commercial and to be standing here and even just sharing my story with the world. So.
Not to get all therapy on you, but you were a Paralympian when you were 12. So at what point were you like, I don't believe in myself?
I was just struggling with that confidence.
Okay,
I think
we all have our moments. Okay,
yes,
all right,
yeah.
all right. Just making sure. Lots of confidence and lots of self-reliance in people's stories often comes from movement and figuring out how to feel empowered by their bodies. Mm-hmm. So for you, particularly, how did working as an athlete and driving yourself forward as an athlete change how you saw yourself and your place in the world?
Yeah, I mean, Paralympics and swimming has completely changed my life. In fact, there was a time I would have never worn prosthetics like this to show the world, right? And for me, swimming gave me that confidence to take on this world as a woman with 2 prosthetic legs and to do it to the best of my ability. And I'm so thankful for swimming because it really did give me that confidence, and I love what I get to do. And there was a long time, in my life where I tried to prove to others, that they were wrong, that I could do it. And now it's a matter of proving to the next generation that they can do it too.
Oh, I love that.
Thanks.
You're like on some Taylor Swift stuff where you're like transitioning from like vigilante bleep and you're moving on to just like self-empowerment and empowering others. I like that. I'm still on vigilante bleep, so I let you all know that, so watch out. Currently, 28 Olympic and Paralympic athletes and hopefuls on Toyota's roster. And as of May last year, they announced first-of-its-kind program offering $5 million in support and sponsorship opportunities to all U.S. Paralympic athletes, not just the Toyota ones. How does that support help you continue? Because people probably don't recognize how much that financial push can change whether you can compete or not.
Oh, yeah. Well, first off, I think it's amazing that Toyota totally stepped up to support the Paralympic movement. It's one thing to say it, but to actually take action and to commit to the Paralympic movement like that completely changed the movement for us. And I know from the Paralympic perspective, that was everything for the next generation, the up-and-coming generation, and the generation that's still competing. So what they were able to provide for the athletes once they made the teams was incredible, and it just made me super proud to be part of the Team Toyota team.
I just love that you're like the up-and-coming athletes in the next generation. And then I looked up your age and I realized that you were 30. I'm like, that is still you somehow.
Yeah.
Like you already have 29 medals and you're like, how many more games can you be at? Let's talk about Tokyo because it was delayed because of COVID. For some athletes, that affected whether they could even compete at all, not to mention their training and their prep and everything else. Yeah. You did great at the games as always, but what happened after?
Yeah, it was definitely hard for all of us, right? I think we can all say we dealt with our own challenges in some way. And for me, I moved out to the Olympic Training Center a year before to train due to COVID and moved away from my husband and my family, and they could not come and visit me. So it was just really challenging and definitely really hard. And I was very thankful to compete in Tokyo and to come away with 3 gold, 2 silver, and a bronze.
Okay.
But thanks. But I definitely think, mental health is huge, and that was something I really struggled with, and just getting back into, swimming and just, taking a break. And sometimes I think it's okay to not always be okay. And for me, this past year, something I've just been really focusing on, just self-care and loving myself and getting that confidence, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the post-game blues is what they call it. I don't know what that feels like because I haven't been in an Olympics yet. But
not yet.
I have gotten married, and they say the same thing sometimes when you have something that you're planning for forever for, and then it's finally over, and you're like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Like, all my other parties don't have such a big budget. Paris 2024, LA 2028. So like I said, I was thinking, 2028, well, that's far off. Like, how's she gonna? And I was like, oh, she's 30. Gross. But while you're prepping for all of that, you're also creating a children's book with your father, and I got a sneak peek. So what can you tell us about it without anyone stealing the idea?
Yes, okay, so super cute. My dad was over helping me hang up pictures or something, and this was 2017, and he was like, Jess, I have this idea for a children's book, and it's about your life. And my dad's the one that went over to Russia to get me and adopt me from a Russian orphanage in Siberia. So I was listening, and it's
You're always listening.
It's about a mermaid with no tail, and it talks, it goes through kind of her life, and it's very similar to mine and kind of what you might have seen at the Super Bowl commercial with Toyota. But I think it's really important because it talks mainly about inclusion and how important that is. And, most of my life I've been the girl with no legs. I'm used to being the girl with no legs, but also at the same time, being the girl with no legs has been my power, my superpower, my greatest gift. And it's allowed me to meet people from all over the world and share my story all over the world, and to not be ashamed of the way that I was born. So I hope that this book, no matter what you look like, whatever difference you might have, it allows children to know that they have a gift because they are the future. So
that's awesome. I saw a sneak peek. I heard a little bit more. It's going to be super rad. I look forward to you coming back to talk about it. A last question quick for you, because we were talking beforehand about you traveling all over the world, and you just recently were traveling to Florida and still had to deal with some BS from the way the world reacts to people with different abilities. Can you talk about that? Because I think your life seems very glamorous and very successful, but you still have to deal with that stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely really hard. I have 4 sets of legs. They're all different heights. These legs are super fun, but when I'm not wearing these legs, I'm wearing my everyday legs, which you saw earlier. And just traveling through TSA, it was actually such a wild moment because I've been traveling for 18 years of my life, and they wouldn't let me go through unless I literally had to pull my pants down so they could swab my prosthetic. And I just was there, and I was like, you mean this is a normal thing? Kids have to do it, people have to do it. And I think for me, that really instilled this idea of, okay, this is maybe some of my purpose as well, to change this, because no one should ever have to feel that way, or just to feel, my difference, my disability, that, what am I saying? It was just awful.
Well, because you've been traveling for so long without having that, so it's also shocking in that moment to be like, I know how this is going to go, and have it not go that way.
Yes, and they were like, oh, this is how it is. But their advice was to not travel, and I would like to make sure that no one ever has to go through that again. And I do think there's still more we have to do in the disabled community. And right now, my job is to still compete in Paralympics and to hopefully bring home some more medals. But at the same time, I can't wait for what's to come after. And I love this as women, and we are so strong. And just get ready.
Okay, we're back to vigilante bleep. Now we're together again. Now we're back together again. Speaking of women that are getting things done, let's bring out our 2 everyday honorees.
Yes, yeah. So for over a decade, Toyota has championed female thought leaders to drive change and opportunity for women in sports. Toyota's Everyday Heroes program honors women who are working to promote and grow sports for girls and women in their local communities. These incredible women leave lasting impacts and have never settled when it comes to highlighting the importance of sports in young girls' lives. Toyota proudly celebrates women who create opportunities for girls and women to gain self-confidence and lead in their communities. Tonight, we will see some of the incredible ways that Toyota Everyday Heroes help girls go places they never thought imaginable through sports. On behalf of Toyota, I am pleased to announce the 7th class of the Toyota Everyday Heroes and introduce our 2022 honorees and to hear their inspiring missions. Our first honoree is Liz Farrow of Girls with Soul. Let's take a look at the video.
I came into my adopted family with a number of issues from trauma in foster care. Sports literally saved my life. Girls with Soul is a nonprofit based in Cleveland, Ohio. We use free fitness and wellness programs to empower the minds, bodies, and souls of girls who have experienced any type of abuse or who are at risk. We do a wide range of fitness activities and sports. We really focus heavily on resilience, but all the other aspects too, because it's all things that you can garner from sports, but you can also use in your life.
I would just like to thank Liz because how many girls and people of all genders she's helped.
She's an excellent role model for me, and she's definitely one of the reasons that I'm so much more confident in myself today.
I've had them say, you know, how did you even get through to this one? I'm like, it isn't me, it's movement.
Woohoo! Woo! All right. Please welcome to the stage Liz Faro. Woo!
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. My gosh.
You hang out right there, Liz, or come on over here.
Okay.
Oh, yes. And our second honoree is Nzinga Prescott of the PIST Academy. Let's take a look at this video.
I like challenges, like going to the Olympics. It's like an athlete part of me. If it's easy, I don't want it. If the top person didn't come to the competition, why am I here? Our mission at PIST is to empower young people from New York City and Brooklyn to learn the sport of fencing and its principles of discipline, strategic thinking, problem solving, and fitness. Giving access to my community is important because they deserve it, and public systems often neglect that.
Working with Nzinga is very fun.
Working with Nzinga is fun but challenging because she knows what we're capable of.
Being at peace helps me become athletic.
Being athletic makes me feel powerful.
So many people poured into me in my career, and so I'm happy to gift everything I've been afforded to this next generation.
Please welcome to the stage Nzinga Prescott. Woo! Sorry.
Look at that dress, girl.
Thank you.
Woo!
Come on over.
That's you.
And on behalf of Toyota, they're awarding you a grant of $15,000 each for your missions. Woo!
I told you to do it like Oprah.
Oh, yes.
You get a grant, and you get a grant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so this is the first time you're hearing this.
Yes.
$15,000 each. I want to hear how that's going to change the work you're doing.
Well, I can't talk right
Okay,
now.
Nzinga, I want to hear how that's going to change the work you're doing.
Well, to be honest, I wear many hats in this role. I'm a coach to our students. I'm an organizer. I'm a parent communicator. I'm a fundraiser. I'm a project planner. I'm an event planner. So this will honestly make my life a lot easier. And whenever I have less responsibilities outside of the fencing club, I can spend more time with our students. So I love that piece of it, and I'm just excited to not be concerned with raising money to support our programs, because it is a no-cost program for families, which is the whole goal of it, because we all know how powerful sports are in realizing our potential. 94% of C-suite women are competitive athletes, former athletes, right? And that's ESPnW research, along with EY, who's my employer, who allows me to do this work. So
look at the plugs. Okay,
plug.
You got the numbers up there.
Yes,
Okay.
no, but it's true. Sports are so powerful, and being able to realize your potential, and so that's what we offer our students, and I'm so happy to be able to do that. So thank you.
I'm so excited for you. I want to ask you, a lot of people find great success in things, find a purpose and a passion and pursue it for themselves, but not everyone looks back and says, I want to bring other people along with me in this. What was the moment that you decided, I want to bring this to other people?
Yeah, I was a recipient of a program like this, the Peter Westbrook Foundation, and that inspired me to do the same. And I spent 20 years honing my skill in fencing, and it's been so rewarding, whether it's my job, traveling the world, feeling empowered as an athlete, like having amazing experiences like this one and meeting amazing people. So I wanted to be able to give that to my community because honestly, it's very unfair that sports are privatized and only those who can afford it can experience the power of sport. And so I wanted to be able to not only provide recreational play, but also pathways to experience the full breadth of sport as a competitive athlete. So that's, I wanted to change the system of it and provide that for young people in my community because they deserve it too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, so deserving. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, let's try this again.
Oh, okay. We're back.
How does this affect the work you're going to be able to do?
Well, I too wear a lot of hats, but when I say we, when I'm speaking of Girls of Soul, it's really just me, myself, and I. I have a very small board. We're a tiny organization, and I run everything solely. So I don't have a staff. So what is amazing about the funds that I'm going to receive through ESPnW and Toyota is I'll be able to help triple the amount of kids, and there's no overhead cost involved whatsoever. So it blows me away. And honestly, in being small, there's a lot of times where it can be feast or famine. You know, a lot of times Christmas and end of the year giving and that sort of thing comes into play. And I know I can keep my doors open, so to speak, for a little while longer, but there are times where I worry. And just to have that worry gone is beyond amazing.
Awesome.
I'm truly grateful.
Awesome. I want to ask you, too, about deciding to do the work that you do, because to thrive despite your own trauma or to turn that trauma into a message for yourself is a challenge enough.
Yeah.
But now you're bringing in other people who are going to bring their trauma to you.
Yeah.
And that's something else altogether. So how did you decide that that was a purpose that you were driven to?
Honestly, I feel like I was put on this planet to do this. I say this to people sometimes only because I was in 4 foster homes and there was abuse in all 4 of the homes. And then I was raped by a neighbor when I was 8 for a year. And the only thing that saved my life literally was sports and fitness. So without swimming, biking, and running, I truly wouldn't be here right now. And I just want to bring other girls who might be going through that out of that dark place faster than I got there.
Yeah.
And it took me until probably I was in my late 20s, early 30s, maybe even my 40s. I'm 54 now, so screw both of you guys.
Yeah, include me with
in
her.
the best and nicest way possible, of
Definitely
course.
closer to 30 than 50.
I know. She's bitching over here. I'm like, I got my own personal summer going on. But I just wanted to bring...
Only the people over 40 got that joke.
Right?
Only
hey,
the people
man,
over 40
those
got
are my
that joke.
people.
And the men whose wives have been a little cranky and always taking off their sweater and putting it back on.
But if you can get somebody out of that dark place and show them, you know, not only that sports can get you there, movement can get you there, the mind-body connection will get you there. It's really just something that we call lacing up for a lifetime of achievement. You can do it forever and pass it on to future generations. It's like a ripple effect of empowerment. So that's what
Thank you
made
for
me do
sharing
it.
that, and thank you for doing the work you do.
Thank you.
I heard Liz in the green room, and she was like, I feel such great vibes here in California. I feel like maybe I belong here. And then I was like, where's she from again? I was like, oh, yeah, Ohio. So Ojai might be getting a new resident.
Ojai.
The Girls with Soul might be expanding, maybe just half the year. You know, when you don't have your own personal summer, you can come to California.
I see this vision.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well, congratulations to both of you. Thank you so much to Toyota for allowing us to have these amazing moments with them. And thank you to Jessica. Back to the pool.
Thank you.
And I have the honor of bringing back up the very fabulous, the very magenta, Elle Duncan.
Sarah Espana, ladies and gentlemen, because we're cultured. Hey-o. And again, a round of applause for our Toyota Everyday Heroes. Truly the embodiment of being able to make an impact in your place, right? Because we've talked about that. In fact, Laura talked about that. It's not just about how you're increasing brand partnerships and being the CMO of it's things like watching women's sports. It's things like investing in girls by coaching. And that's what we do. So thank you so much for your contributions in this space. And how are we feeling? We're full, we're stuffed, yeah? couple of you guys look like you've had a couple elixirs. I'm not calling any names out. But we've got so much still ahead. A fantastic program. Our keynote speaker is on the way. We'll talk about Pink Card, and I can't wait for you guys to meet Shima. But a little earlier in the program, we heard Laura talk about allyship and how important it is for the men of influence, in particular at this company, to help us in this space. And I want to bring someone up who is the epitome of that and is going to talk to us about the Walt Disney World's commitment to helping make an impact in this very space. And so with that, I want you to give your best oh hi welcome. I don't know what an oh hi welcome looks like yet, but we'll work on that. Maybe it snaps. Are we crunchy yet? Yeah, snaps. I think Kareem likes cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution, Kareem Daniel. He said, I'm not gonna dance.
Good. Hey there.
We promised him he wouldn't have to dance, it's fine. We were gonna do the Cupid Shuffle, but we won't. Hi, Kareem.
I need one of those elixirs, I think. Elixirs?
Yeah, Elle. You have
Elle.
the emphasis on Elle.
I apologize.
It's gotta linger, right, when you order it? Do you do that? Do you say, I want an Elle? See, say it again? God, I'm vain. I like hearing it, though. Before we get into the conversation, because we have spent some time talking, but I feel like I need to know how to appropriately judge you. So what are your favorite sports teams? What are your alliances?
My alliances. Well, I'm from Chicago, like Sarah. Oh, good. Lots of Chicago. Love that. Hey there. And undoubtedly, I would go for Chicago team. So it's the Bears, it's the Blackhawks. I will say I'm not that much into baseball. If I were into baseball, I'd probably be like many of you, looking at your phones right now, watching World Series. It's not my sport. But
Wait, are you Cubbies or White Sox?
So I'm from the South Side, so I'm supposed to say White Sox. I get it, 100%.
Okay.
But fundamentally, baseball wasn't my thing. Bulls, yes, but I'm named after a Laker, so it's kind of convoluted.
Wait.
and
the Red Stars. Shout out to the Red Stars.
That's fair.
We
and
love
of course,
that.
Anything Stanford. At Stanford women's basketball right here.
He's repping the Stanford right now. Yes. Yeah. Do we have any Cardinal? How do you, like, right? You can't say the S. It's like, do we have any Cardinal in the building? It feels weird.
Color,
right.
not a bird.
Yeah. All right, so we're okay. You're good. You've got some championships under your belt. I like to be messy and petty. I was hoping you'd say something Atlanta related, but you didn't. So Kareem, I sort of mentioned, your title, and you're 2 years into what was a huge, sort of massive, and an innovative role, right? Where the company was trying to take a more holistic approach to content. How has that created more space to make an impact specifically in this space for women?
Well, I think everything that we do across content has been heightened by this reorganization. Historically, this company, which is almost 100 years old, has been very siloed. And we all know how synergistic the Walt Disney Company is, and I would still say it's been siloed and suboptimal when you look at film, TV, sports. What we did was, instead of having those be individual businesses, those teams, the film, TV, and sports, they do what they do better than anyone else in the world. They create against that. We pulled together all the business aspects and a new group called Direct-to-Consumer, which has Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Star, and put that into this new group, Disney Media Entertainment Distribution. It just allows us to be more nimble. We want to focus on the consumer. We want to focus on the fan in a way that, frankly, we weren't able to as much before. And there's so many examples. We just had the #1 event we've ever had on ESPN Plus, an NFL game with the Jags and Broncos, obviously, just a couple days ago. We're able to move things around. We have a show called Legacy, a Lakers documentary that's on Hulu. We were able to put an episode on ESPN to drive people back into the service. It's just looking across all these different aspects that allows us to move things around. It's again, it's fundamentally the ethos of the company. When you look at something like 50-50, where historically perhaps that would occur only on ESPN, that is clearly a company-wide initiative, because it's a way of organizing that is not based upon one specific platform. So you can really move things around in a different way. And there's so many examples. There's how much we're putting on ABC. When you look across ABC and all the ESPN networks, putting 13,000 women's events actually on air across the Walt Disney Company, 26,000 hours. That's the kind of thing that we're able to do more flexibly, more nimbly by being organized in this way. So I've seen tremendous advantages across every aspect of film, TV, definitively sports, and women's sports in particular as well.
We talk a lot, and we talked about it earlier with Laura, right? Like having a seat at the table. How often do you guys hear that adage, right? Representation is so important. How do you sort of view the value of women in important roles in your space and group?
Undoubtedly, I agree with that statement. And sentiment often said, but how does it get backed up? What are the results? And since the creation of this group, I know it's, well, first of all, company reorg 3 years ago, new management, et cetera. I know that's part of what the Walt Disney Company wants to do fundamentally from a management standpoint. Disney Media Entertainment definitively supports that to the extent where there's just so many examples. When I talk about we have reorganized, the businesses, the aspects of film, TV, sports, et cetera, fall under the auspices of what we're trying to do at DMED. So when you look at the head of networks, that woman, Deborah O'Connell, who is here, who is a fantastic partner, all of those P&Ls for networks roll into her group. The woman that runs ad sales, Rita Farrow, sitting right next to her. This is an incredible team. And actually, it's an interesting story. The first time we had our first staff meeting, and we're all on Zoom because we were formed during the middle of COVID, which it's super fun to have a leadership team that's never been in the same room together, which I think is still true.
It works.
I think it's actually still. But Rita texted me a screenshot just saying, look at the diversity, the number of women, the different ethnicities, and so forth that we saw on that screen, which was a special moment. And that's been part of our ethos since we were created. And when you look at people that not just are in the room, but have a fundamental mandate to deliver upon that diversity throughout their organizations, we're at over 40% women at this point. We obviously know that that's I can throw out a lot of stats that frankly are irrelevant because there's progress to be made, and we will continue making that progress. And I know that our team, regardless of whether it's a woman at the table or not, buys into that. There's white male CFO that sends me a status report every week. I've never asked him to do this, but in addition to whatever he finds to be important about financial detail aspects, he always includes the week of recruitment and gender, ethnicity, and so forth. Again, I've never asked for that. It's something that we all believe in, and we're seeing that propagate because it's not enough to talk about, let's have diversity and you need a seat at the table. How about having decision making fundamentally and keep driving that not only at that table, but propagating that throughout media and entertainment?
Yeah, I think that, we hear a lot of buzzwords, right? Like a holistic approach, but it just feels like everything, right? Like I've said that before too. Sometimes I don't even know what it means.
Did I say holistic?
I said holistic, actually. It was me that said it. But I think that at its core, Kareem, what I'm getting at is that it just feels like everything that is being done with an intentionality, right? Like, and everything that is happening at the company is being informed by how it benefits or impacts women.
I love that word, intentionality, and it's something that when we look at diversity and inclusion, I'll tell you another story. We were actually, all of the groups of the Walt Disney Company were tasked on Bob's team to come up with a plan for DE&I, and when we talked about it, DMED, we thought we would find key executives throughout our organization that would be great at this, and they could report to the leadership team of DMED about progress, and we could give them guidance and so forth. But the thing is, we fundamentally think about it in a different way, where a lot of times D&I can be that other thing that we do. It's exactly what we do. It's part of everything that we do. We will judge it and judge ourselves with the same criteria and the same robust metrics that we would whether we're launching a new network, whether we're launching a new service, and so forth. So we said our leadership team is going to be the D&I Executive Council. And that's what we decided to do, and it therefore falls into every single thing that we do, and we hold ourselves accountable accordingly. So it is with great intention that we do so.
It's entrenched in the fabric. My father used to be a diversity officer for a major company, and he talks about like every year, like for 1 week, you'd go get like your diversity training, like it was camp, you know, and you would learn how to be empathetic, and then you would be done for the year. And that's not at all how it is anymore, especially not at the Walt Disney World Company. We like that.
Absolutely not.
Daniel, thank you so. Unless you want to wobble for everyone, I think we can let you go. Do you want to see Kareem wobble? I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that to you.
I don't think so.
There's some yes. Kareem, thank you again for
Appreciate it,
sharing your very important time with us and for just setting the table and the expectation for all of us and the standard that Disney is withholding to make sure they're making a true significant impact and one that's meaningful. Thank you so much for representing that and being an ally and harbinger of change. Thank you, Kareem Daniel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Kareem.
Appreciate it.
Was it two? I was going to have them play. You know Spinderella is spinning tonight, right? We know this. You didn't get my Jay-Z reference, but you definitely got a Salt and Pepper reference, right? We could have played Kareem out with like, what a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty good, right? Yes, he is. All right. Oh my God. I hope Spin didn't hear that. She might not come out. She'll be like, oh, who's butchering my song? Okay, so with that, we are going to get to our keynote address, and before I bring her up, I just want you to have a little sneak peek at 30 for 30's next podcast, Pink Card. Enjoy.
30 for 30 podcast presents Pink Card, Iranian women. Soccer stadium for more than 40 years. This is the story of how they took their stadium back. Listen now, wherever you get your podcasts.
That is the definition of a teaser, okay? The voice that you heard is Shima Oliai. She is a first-generation American born and raised in Nevada, the co-creator of the 9-part series Dolly Parton's America. Did you guys see it? It was amazing. In fact, so amazing that she won a George Foster Peabody Award, an Edward R. Murrow Award, and a New York Festival of the Arts Award. You guys, I was just excited that they made up a drink in my name. Like, this lady is so impressive. Oh my God. I was like, I made it, Mom. She's like 100 awards. She is absolutely incredible, and she also has a little background in comedy, too. We'll get into that as well. Today, we're going to talk to her about her first solo podcast series, Pink Card, which is coming very soon to the 30 for 30 world. So, oh hi, give a big keynote-worthy welcome to Shima Oliai. Oh, you look great. Sorry. I'm like fangirling. I'm like, you look so great.
No, you
Hi,
look so
Shima.
cute. Oh my God.
How are you? Welcome. Hey, everybody. Say hey. All right,
Yes.
Shima. How are you?
I'm good.
So I read a little bit of your bio. I could have kept reading. It's very long and impressive. But like you're doing Dolly Parton. You were a writer on Brooklyn Nine-Nine at one point, so a comedy writer. And you landed here on this subject, this incredibly heavy subject. How did soccer inform your childhood enough that it sort of fell into your purview and you wanted to tackle this?
Yeah, I think that even part of my leaning toward comedy was that my parents kind of got frozen at 19 years old. That's when they landed in America. They were freshmen in college in Iran in 1979. So 4 years later, I was born, and I grew up in Reno, Nevada, which is nothing like Iran. And my parents were just really funny. Like, my mom would tease me that I was too conservative, and she's like, you need to have fun, dress sexier. And it was so the opposite. It's like, I'm wearing this for her today. But it was so the opposite of what I saw on TV about Iran, right? And my parents were just, they thought they were so young. They just loved to play around. My mom played on soccer club teams for 40 years. And she's very competitive. And in 4th grade for Christmas, I got a soccer ball. And she taught me how to play. And I found this video of us playing, which you hear at the start of this series, where she's basically just annihilating me, and she doesn't care, and she's like yelling at me in Farsi, and I'm yelling at her in English, and then I even use like tactics, like little kid tactics, where I go, "Mom, I love you," and then she doesn't buy any of it. And when I would ask her about her childhood in Iran, she would always kind of put up a wall. Like she didn't even try to like tiptoe around it. She would just talk about her memories playing soccer with her older brothers. And she said it was like she would tell this story about when they were at this party and I had my party shoes on and my brothers were out there and they were older than her and they needed a goalie. So they said, "Little Manouche, why don't you be the goalie?" And she's like, "I kicked the ball out. I like, I basically defended my team. We won." And she said, "It was the best day of my life." And I thought, wow, I was also born one of those days, but it was soccer. So that was it. Like every time I asked about Iran, she would talk about soccer. And it was actually in the summer of 2020 when we were all, at home and we had our own kind of like social revolution in America. And I just started seeing images in the news that reminded me of late 70s Iran. And I really wanted to look at where I came from, where my mother came from. And I found this story starting with one girl who is as much of a soccer fanatic as my mom is. Yeah. So anyway.
I want to go to what you mentioned right there, because pardon my ignorance, I'm gonna be honest, I sort of, and I hope that I'm like, this is the Keep It Real show, right? I've said that a couple of times. Like, I have felt as though being 39 years old, when I think of sort of Middle Eastern women, Iranian women, I think of sort of oppressive, they've always been this way. It's always been sort of a patriarchal society where they've had to be demure and covered. What was Iran like pre-1979 for Iranian women?
Yeah, so, I think across the globe, women have had many rights at times that we would think that they had zero rights. We just think that it's a constant gradual improvement, and that's not true. We've had many women in leadership in Iran, in the Middle Eastern area. In the 1900s specifically, like even the first decade, it was a group of organizing women that decided that the UK could no longer like take Iran's tobacco, and they like organized and they kicked out these colonists. So there's been a lot of, basically uniting of forces to help the country throughout the century. And by the 70s, it was a very Western culture. My parents grew up watching American films, like most of the rest of the world. My dad fell in love with my mom because she reminded him of Barbara Eden from I Dream of Jeannie.
Yes.
And so, which he watched as a kid in Iran, and then met my mom in America. My mom met my dad that same year that she came to America at 19, and he was wearing flip-flops with a puffer jacket and an afro, and she's like, "Oh, that's my American boyfriend." Like they were just so in love with this country, and that was very true in Iran. It was called the Paris of the Middle East. People wore pastel skirts, like bobs, heavy eyelashes and eyeliner, and a lot of short skirts. And my mom would brag about like, yes, I would jump to the front of the picket line with my short skirt, and I would also dance better than any woman. Like, and so she had such a good childhood where she really enjoyed her freedom. And, she got into a better university than my dad did in Iran before they both had to leave the country. So for me, I always thought like my mom is the ruler of the house and she's like the ruler of her life. And those were the stories, that I saw when I started researching the 70s in Iran, but also that I heard about from their friends.
So, to catch people up on a bit of a history lesson, that was the 70s that we're talking about. And again, like it was never, no place has ever been perfect for women, right? Or necessarily idealistic, but they were empowered and emboldened. To your point, they had better literacy rates than men did. They had positions of power. They were rulers. The Shah flees. It ends Persian monarchy in Iran. In comes Khomeini, a man who had spent 14 years in exile. And guys, again, if for those of you that don't remember back then, like this was a man who was Times Magazine's like man of influence for 1979, right? For his impact in the world. And at first, when he takes over, he's presenting as what, Shima, towards the women's suffrage movement?
So in the 60s, he had been very clear that he was anti-women.
Right.
So when women got the right to vote in 63, he said that it was basically equal to prostitution. That's around the time he gets kicked out. And then in the late 70s, he starts changing his tune when he gets interviewed by American media saying, I'm going to protect women. I think that they should be equal. As soon as he gets flown in with a lot of Western journalists into Iran to take over once the Shah fled, basically it became very clear that that was not the case, that he was lying in those interviews. And, you know, women had been they had led the revolution. They stood in front of the tanks in 79. They were protesting every day. It was their revolution too. They wanted a democracy. That is why the Shah fled. And long story short is, you know, basically within 1 month of Khomeini returning, they make one big statement, which is that when women go to work, they say, you cannot return to this job tomorrow if you do not have the hijab.
But I'm sorry, Shima, what day was that on?
That was March 8th. Oh, it was the day before, March 8th, 1979, which is International Women's Day.
The irony, right? So what happens when women show up to work that day?
So everyone is very upset. There was already a celebration planned for March 8th to celebrate women's liberation and to celebrate like what they were hoping would be a new democracy. And instead, once word got out that the women would be the first to have their rights restricted after this great upheaval, everyone was very angry. So they gathered at the judicial building in Tehran. It was just an army of women kept coming and coming, and they were like, women were getting up like on a table, giving speeches, and then they all marched in the streets. And it's estimated that about 100,000 women were in the streets that day, both veiled and unveiled, but mostly unveiled, as the snow was falling down in March of 79. And yeah, by the 4th day of their protests, the clerics made an announcement that it was a misunderstanding, and the women,
oops,
yeah, and the women felt triumphant and they quieted, and then the clerics had to turn to something else to make the change.
So the women that day, those 4 days, they're protesting, they're empowered, right? Does it sound familiar to you? Like they're pissed off and they're gonna make sure that people hear it. And they leave there feeling really inspired, right? They leave there feeling what? After basically telling these men, like, you will not oppress us. They leave there feeling like their voices were heard.
Yeah, and they also felt victorious because they felt, you know, we already got rid of one dictator, we'll do it again.
Yeah.
You know? And that was the feeling at that time, and especially once the clerics retracted their statement, they thought, yeah, you better not take away our rights, like we rule this country. So
what did they do? How did they get sneaky?
So this is the big question I had in my reporting was, how do you take such a strong, educated, like fierce part of the population and force them into submission almost overnight? And what happened is the police force at that time started going into the main city in Iran, the capital, Tehran, which again was known as the Paris of the Middle East. So there's thousands of shops with like European trends, like the hottest fashions. The mannequins at that time are not like the mannequins that we see in American malls today. They had they looked kind of like me, full on makeup, huge eyelashes, like long caramel colored hair. And anyway, they were like, of course, wearing very colorful clothing. The police showed up and they told the shopkeepers, this mannequin needs to cover her hair. So the shopkeepers thought it was funny, but then the police pointed their gun at the shopkeeper, and so the shopkeeper took a scarf, wrapped it around the mannequin's head. The next day, and they thought they were okay. The next day, the police would show up again. They said, "Oh, I can see 1 inch of her hair," so they covered the hair. The next day, they came back. They said, "We can see her nail polish," so they covered the nail polish. And so slowly, even the expressions on these mannequins' faces got removed. So they erased the eyes, they erased the lips. And then finally, the shopkeepers, after months of harassment, took the mannequins to the basement and cut off their heads. So the mannequins then were replaced with this triangle, piece of cardboard with a scarf over it. They cut off their hands. Then they cut off the breasts of the mannequins, so only what was left was the coils. And the woman that shared with me the story, who's a very famous revolutionary in Iran, Mengiz Kar, she told me that when she was first watching this in the streets, she and her little daughter were laughing. Like, oh, look at these policemen, they can't do anything. So they're harassing the mannequins. Within 1 year, every woman in Iran was fully dressed in coarse black fabric, fully veiled, heavy pants, thick pants, and long shirts. Coats had to be longer than the knees, all of that. So the mannequins became a symbol of women's oppression and also of fear. How do we instill fear in a population? And symbols become so key in dealing with a dictatorship. And that kind of leads into the story that I tell in the series.
I love when we were talking, they're basically trying to form the image of a woman in their eyes, whatever the clerics decide that a woman should look like, to strip her and dehumanize her of everything that makes her uniquely a woman, right? So how did sports factor into this era?
So within that year when women's dress had changed very drastically, one day in 1981, so about a year and a half after all of this happens, women show up to the National Soccer Stadium. And part of the suppression in the clothing is also the suppression of expression. Like, you can't be too loud, you can't laugh too much, you can't show joy. But the National Soccer Stadium is the place where everyone feels the most joy, the most rage. Like, it's the one place where you can fully express emotion, united as a national citizen. And these women show up to a game, and the guards tell them that they are not allowed inside. Like, there was no announcement this time. They were just told at the gates. And the women were shocked. They said, "We have every right to go inside. We were here like last week." And they said, "Actually, no, we don't need you here in order to protect you. You should not be here. And also to protect your delicacy, we don't want you to see the men's bare legs as they play the game."
I'm sorry, say that again.
So we need to protect you from the scandal of the men's bare legs. So, and the other thing they told them—
I see that you're laughing. It's ridiculous, except it's true.
And the other thing they told them is that the stadium had been renamed. It used to be called Audiomer. So 6 years prior to this moment, Frank Sinatra had played a concert there, including singing the song "The Lady is a Tramp" in that same stadium. And 6 years later, these women are told, you can't go inside, and we've renamed the stadium. We've renamed it Azadi, and which Azadi means freedom. So
I'm sorry, Shima, back up. So you name a stadium Freedom right as you're stripping an entire population of their right to access that stadium.
Yeah, it would make you mad, right?
A little bit. How did they react to this, obviously?
So because of the fear instilled in the country, basically knowing that you could be murdered for disobeying whatever random law was created overnight, and there were many specifically targeted at women, they went home. But what happens is, and actually the next 10 years in Iran are very dark because the Iran-Iraq war begins, and hundreds of thousands of people are killed on both sides. And it's not until this really important global game that all the women again turn their eyes back to Azadi Stadium. and the whole movement begins. And I don't know if I should share.
Yeah, that game is a game in 1997. It seemed like somewhat of an arbitrary match between Iran and Australia. Why was it anything but an arbitrary match, and what did it spark?
So the country is like coming back from this war. So it's still like depression levels are high. Like they're just trying to recoup. They had a revolution. It didn't go the way people thought it would go. There's oppression and then a war, and then slowly economy's building. People are trying to get, their life force back. And this 98 World Cup is coming up. And Iran is like, most of the world, like people are just soccer fanatics. They estimate, of course, this is like FIFA's estimation, but that 5 billion people watch it, and like I calculated how many Christians and Muslims and Hindus there are, and it's like more than that. And so like it's kind of our international unifier. And anyway, this game between Australia and Iran, it seemed like any other game, but we had tied in Iran, and there was a second game in Australia. And I talked to this young woman who was 15 at the time, and she said, not so young anymore, she's in her 30s, but she said that game, no one was on the streets. She said the entire country had gone inside their homes to watch this game. She said she was in Muslim school. She begged her teacher to let them watch the game, and the teacher said, only if you get all the girls to do a prayer at noontime, then you can all leave. So all the girls do this one prayer, they all leave to watch the game, and what happens in the first half of the game is Australia is annihilating Iran. Like, it's just embarrassing. If you have not seen this game, you will love it. Even if you like hated sports, you would love this game. Because Australia is doing so well, the announcers are so happy, like it's all in the bag.
Wait, is it 28-3, but soccer style? Yeah, we know 28.
It's 2-0. It's 2-0. And
which is 28-3, right?
And they basically, the entire thing is played in Iran's defense, on a defensive side. Like the ball cannot get over to the other side of the stadium. And so, it's sad, but like, there was a moment of feeling of like national pride, like we're coming back as a country, but still like they were losing. And the second half, the Iranian goalie points to the net and says, hey, he stops the game. He says there's a 2-foot gap. And so reps like run to the field, they like tie up the net, and they start playing again about a few minutes later. But something in the energy of the stands has changed, because Australia fans are totally nuts. Like that's one of the beauties of watching this game, is everyone's in such a high like atmosphere, and the Iranian goalie kind of cut it down. Within the next minute of the game starting, Iran's Asia's Player of the Year and Iran's like star soccer player scores a goal. 2 minutes later, and this is all in the last 5 minutes of the game, he scores his second goal. So they tie, and because they're in Australia's turf, Iran goes to the World Cup. And Sarah tells me, Sarah's actually her pseudonym because she ends up being an activist later, but she says, everyone, wherever they were, they all went to the streets. Across this depressed country, everyone wakes up. Another young woman, Nasreen, who becomes part of the soccer movement, she said that she'd been listening on a radio in her college class. She had hid the radio underneath her hijab. And so like she was like telling everyone the game, and she's like, we won. And everyone ran outside, all the cars stopped. So she's like, a girl jumped on a taxi, like everyone was handing out ice cream and sherbet and sweets. Like then they put on the music and everyone's just dancing. Like it was just it was just the wildest dance
Wait a minute.
party.
You weren't even allowed to dance before then.
You are not allowed to dance in public, sing in public, emote in public, and everyone breaks loose. And even the more remote regions, this is happening. And I think the girls who had never grown up in pre-revolution Iran were shocked by what they saw and the power of soccer in their homeland. And so they're mesmerized. Women strip off their veils, And then it's announced that the players would be helicoptered in. They would fly to the airport and they would be helicoptered in to Azadi Stadium. And they put out a television broadcast saying, women, don't show up. You're not in, like, don't come. You're not supposed to be there. 5,000 women show up at the gates with all the men, and they break through. And once they get inside, they all strip off the veils. Like, all these young women are watching this. And it's a moment where a portal opens of like, oh my God, my life can be so much more. Like, my friends, my community can be so much more joyous. And I think that joy is like nestled in the memory of those girls. And several years later, that's when they start targeting Azadi Stadium.
And you say targeting Azadi Stadium, the White Scarves.
Yes.
Who are the White Scarves in this story?
So those two girls I mentioned, one who had been in college and one who was in high school, Sarah and Nasreen, they, you know, it's a couple years later, so one is in college, one's in grad school, and, you know, Sarah told me that she started becoming a huge soccer fan and reading sports magazines, and because of the censorship in Iran, a lot of radical feminist writers would sneak in their articles into the sports magazines. And so she felt like she was getting trained by feminist leaders on how to think about her rights and her own mission in life. So by the time she gets to college, she's a total feminist. She like wants to be a journalist. Nasreen is a little bit older, and she had already started meeting with other feminist women, and they had these secret Monday groups, like Monday meeting groups of 11 women, same amount on a soccer team, and they would get together and say, what can we do to shift the country? Like, what can we do to like infiltrate women back into like society? And 3 of the women became totally focused on the stadium. That was their battle. But there was like a stoning campaign. There were marriage law, marriage rights. Was some of the girls focused on how to, you know, infiltrate or change those. But Sarah Nasreen and a woman named Mahbubeh, they all focused specifically on the stadium, and they became known as the White Scarves because a few times into their activism, but basically at the gates of Azadi, when they showed up, they tried to infiltrate with a political group. It's a longer story than this, but the guards ripped their posters because they had made these posters that said, our share is half of freedom, meaning like our share, we deserve half of that stadium. And the guards would just immediately rip up their posters and they would go home sad. They'd find another international game. They specifically targeted international games because it would get a lot of press attention. So they were using soccer to like broadcast the truth about their lives to the rest of the world because of, again, censorship and the lack of availability to be able to express what's really going on. And by the 3rd game that they infiltrate, I mean, the 2nd game, they catch the girls and drive them into the middle of the desert and leave them there. So they have to find their way back into the city. And by the 3rd game, Nasreen goes, I have an idea. What is the one thing the guards would never touch or never rip? Our scarf. So the girls take red spray paint and they graffiti onto their scarves. Our share is half of freedom. And so as half of Azadi Stadium. So they put on the scarves and they show up at the gates. And so all the international journalists take photos of their scarves, and no one can get rid of the message because the guards would never dare touch their veil. And they get fame overnight. One woman gets her leg crushed, Mahbubeh gets sent to the ER. Like, there's just all kinds of like hijinks. And my favorite story in this is kind of an Ocean's 11 story where Sarah, once the older girls, Nasreen and Mahbubeh, they both get arrested and they both end up living in exile within just several years. Sarah becomes the senior leader of the group, and she infiltrates a Korea versus Iran game, South Korea versus Iran at Azadi Stadium. And it's this great moment where they basically had to find a Korean speaker in Iran, and she's like, people don't speak Korean in Iran. I'm like, I figured that, you know, like, and it's like, so really, they don't really cross over much. They found flyers, and they had a stakeout outside the Korean embassy, and it was like pouring rain, and it's Sarah's 25, the other 2 girls are like 21, 22, 23, and the Korean embassy comes out, the delegates come out, and they think, all they want to do is give the flyers to them so they know we can't go. Because the crazy thing is women from every other country can go to that stadium.
Just not Iranian women.
Just the women from that country, like their own citizens, and even little kids. So this guard sees them, comes to their car. So they gave these flyers. The Korean, delegates are like, "What is this? We don't understand what you're trying to do." They go back into the car. They're drenched. They're like warming up their clothes by the heater, and they get a knock on the door, and it's a guard. So they go, "Oh," and like we are all going to jail today. And they put down the window, and the guard goes, "Are you trying to go to the game?" And they go, "Yes." And the guard goes, "Do you need tickets?" And they go, "Yes." And he gave them 4 tickets. And then they think, and then another officer shows up, and they think, "Oh my God, now we're going to get arrested." And he goes, "Are you with this other woman, da-da-da-da?" And they go, "No, we don't know who that is." He goes, "Perfect, follow me." And they are escorted by police VIP into Azadi Stadium. And I go to Sarah, I said, "Sarah, they know you're not allowed in there. What happened?" She goes, "Because we had the ticket." Because we had the ticket, they thought there must be some reason. Like someone gave us this who's in power and we're supposed to be there. So they get in through all 3 gates of security. Like security is crazy at Azadi. Another car, like as they're driving in, giggling, and she taped all of this. So all of these sounds are in the podcast. They're giggling, they're screaming. There's a group of boys that pull up next to them, and they go, because they're like, everyone's shocked that these 3 Iranian girls are there. And then they also taped going in the underpass into the game, where they start to see the green of the pitch and the crazy noise of the fans. And they're like literally hiding with Korean children. It's so bizarre, but it was so joyful. They learned the Korean cheers, then they got in trouble again, and they're like, "Oh my God, now we're gonna get arrested." And then they just shove them over to the Iranian side, and they go, "Yeah." So it's just tons of hijinks. And at the end of it, Sarah told me when they got back in the car, she ended up pulling into the freeway on the opposite side and literally could have killed them, because she was like flying into the opposite side of the traffic, because they were so happy. And she said that when she was there, she thought, "I wish everyone who's arrested and who's in prison and who's gone could have been there." And she said it was something about having the ticket. Like, it's my own ticket. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Sometimes they go, "Oh, we'll let women do that." But I got my ticket myself, right? Yeah.
I secured that ticket.
Yeah.
We will find out, more about what happened to the white scarves. But I think, like anything else, when it comes to activism, generations are influenced and empowered by other generations. And so, because of the white scarves and what they did, and just simply garnering national attention, we are introduced in the podcast